Okay.
Go. I don't know. It's probably gonna make it into the thing.
Usually does. Hi everyone!
Hi.
We are back with another video, and this time we are sharing what we read, but for the whole month of October, because...
If you notice, we're still squatting like right in front of Alexa's tiny shelf next to the bed, because we still have guests and they're still taking pretty much all of the real estate up in here, so...
Not that we mind, because we love them, but
oh, totally. Definitely a lot of love. But do we like sitting on the floor while this thing happens? Probably not.
Nah.
Although, for those of you who've been following the channel for ever since its inception, this harkens back to the earlier, humbler times when Alexa would blog on her floor, next to her tiny shelves,
True.
in the Bronx. Yes, we harken back to those days.
Okay then, after that
Sorry,
extremely
memory
long
lane.
explanation. We are doing a sort of monthly version of what we read just because we've been so busy this month that barely any reading has gotten done. But we did get some things read. So I am going to kick things off by sharing a book that I technically started in September, but I finished in October, and that book is A Tyranny of Petticoats, which is edited by Jessica Spotswood and is 15 stories by different authors. And this is a collection of short stories about fierce female heroines set in different historical time periods here in the US. And it's very interesting. I was not expecting that some of these stories were going to have sort of a fantastical element to them, although I should have known considering the lineup of authors. But it was a really fun collection. I can't say that I enjoyed every story equally, because there were definitely some that I really loved more than others. There were some that I felt were a little too short and slightly underdeveloped, but all in all it's a very solid collection. It's different from anything that I really read short story wise, because I'm used to reading like contemporary or fantasy short stories, and this was like historical fiction all the way, which was really fun. There is actually going to be a second collection of short stories edited by Jessica Spotswood, and it's coming out next year, and it's called The Radical Element. Same thing, I think it's historical fiction as well, female heroines as well, all female author lineup as well, which I think is really cool. So yeah, if you're into short stories, maybe consider checking this one out if you are also into historical fiction. However, overall, like as a general recommendation, I probably wouldn't be able to say that as easily just because it's so specific when it comes to like your taste and what you like. But yeah, for me personally, I enjoyed it. If you're interested in finding out what my specific favorites were, I'll just link to my blog post because I put it in there. So yeah.
Lovely. I also started a book in September and ended in October, just in time for the blog tour. I give you A Kata Warrior. Now, I will preface this mini review in saying that the lore just got so much deeper and so much more rich that it could potentially be something. And first of all, I love this trilogy. I love the Matrix trilogy, for those of you who remember what that is, because we are of that age now, where I actually had to make her watch the Matrix.
Yeah, that's true.
And so a lot of people didn't like the two movies that came after the first one, which was fresh and new and awesome, much like Akata Witch, because for whatever reason it delved deeper into the mythos behind like the whole Neo and whatever. That said, this is not suddenly a philosophy type deal the way with Matrix Revolutions, right, where it just throws people off. But the lore is just so deep that if you're not too familiar with all of the Nigerian aspects of the lore, it'll be a bit like getting lost in, let's say, Greek mythology or Norse mythology that is heavy and you wouldn't know it. I had a bit of a hard time hanging on, but I totally did. It doesn't help either, at least for me, that the first book was very linear in terms of this is the problem, this is how we're going to fix it, me and my friends against like a great evil. Here, it's sort of like that, but in a very roundabout way. The characters are deeper, and I like that. They really kind of grew towards each other relationships, so that was fun. And so overall, definitely 4 stars. Like this book. Will I reread it again? Probably not. That's why it's, but still 4 stars is whoo.
I was like, are we giving star ratings now?
I know, right? Well, I'm
still working on that.
Still working on that, but I know my star ratings are as simple as 1 would be I wouldn't read it at all, like I totally dropped it, and then 5 would be I would reread it over and over again. So giving it a 4 does not mean like it was less than good. It's just amazing, but I probably just wouldn't reread it. So that's the only time.
Don't worry guys, we're really working on the rating thing because I know a lot of you would like to see that, so we're thinking about it. The next book I read is That Inevitable Victorian Thing by E.K. Johnston, and this is set in a world where the British Empire never fell. And so basically they still have control over most of the world,
Criminy.
Including the States.
Ooh.
Anyway, it is about the Crown Princess, and her name is Victoria Margaret, right? Yes. Her name is Victoria Margaret, and it's also about a girl named Helena and a boy named August, and their paths cross one summer when Helena and Victoria Margaret are making their debut in Canadian society, or in society in general. And it's a lot of stories woven into one. It's August dealing with some business problems he's got, it's Helena dealing with a new revelation she has about herself, and it's Victoria Margaret trying to, you know, enjoy the summer of freedom she has before her obligations to the crown call for her attention. And it's good in the sense that it gives us an alternate world, which is so interesting, and it gives us these three characters with like very different individual journeys who interact with each other and kind of find that their own experiences sort of shape everyone else's as well because of what happens. But what I think was a problem with this one is that there is sort of a glass wall between you and the characters, so there's no real connection, and for me that's always a very important thing in a book. And the other thing that I had a problem with was the pacing, because it was kind of really like either really slow or really quick, and there would be a lot of time jumps. Plus the ending is so abrupt, and I'm just like, that's where it ends. Yeah, so I can't say that this was a new favorite for me. Like, I thought it was interesting. I don't regret reading it because it was definitely different from what I normally read, and I like the whole idea of the British Empire still being in power, because that was really interesting, especially the way she painted it, where it was them and a combination of other cultures. So that was just interesting to me. But overall, this one is one that I don't think I would return to, and I also don't know how people would objectively take this book, because it's not one of those things I can generally recommend. I have to be specific in knowing what you like. So yeah, take that as you will.
Awesome. And now for this little gem of a book, which by the way, thank you for handing it over to me. Alexa got this book and she said, I think you're gonna really want to read this, and I'm like, okay, fine, give. And I quote this, so it's called Berserker. There's the blurb at the back ends with Berserker. Emily Laybourne, the author of Monument 14, presents her vision of an American West studded with Viking glory. Did she do it? I would say yes. So, it's really fun. I googled furiously all of the lore that she put in here because I wanted to see if she really took for some Viking lore, and you know, make it her own. I think she made up most of it, which is super awesome, right? Because there is the Berserker, so this is called Berserker. Our main character is a girl who is a Berserker, so added extra strength, agility, fighting prowess, and just the ability to see the cleanest line from A to B to just kill people, which is, that's fun. So it's just, and it starts in Norway and ends in the Wild West because her Berserker stuff gets him in trouble and the family has to flee now. And she's aided by a young cowboy. So I'm just like, what? I mean, it sounds like a hokey B-movie concept, but it's so well made. Especially because Berserkers, or at least the gift of berserking, or something like that, I don't know, that's even a thing, is not the only thing that the old gods have given the Viking monarchs. There are a bunch of other powers too that could erupt in the blood with terrible consequences if you overuse them, and her family is just, you know, flooded with those kinds of things. And so to have, it's almost kind of like the Wild West meets Viking mythology meets like Xavier School for gifted, or at least, you know, a world that needed that. Kind of like almost when, you know, those memes with Elsa, and it's like, this is how Frozen should have ended. It's like, Elsa, welcome to my school. There's a bald man on a thing. I feel this should have been the same way, where guys, if there was just a school that teaches you to control your powers, you should be fine. But it was a fun ride. I absolutely recommend this book. I wouldn't reread it again anytime soon, but I wouldn't mind picking it up because the lore is just so fun. So read it for that, and I'll give you semi-spoilers to sort of lure people in. So she's a Berserker, but one of the gifts in the line, you could be a Stormwind, and that's where your ability to control the weather with your breath, which you will pay for with your eyes, if ever that makes sense. Or you could be a shipwright or something like that, where you can, you know, carve and stuff, but your fingers fall off. So big trade-offs, but everything that you need to be a raiding, marauding crew is in the gifts, and this is just really fun. So read it, pick it up, it's gonna be awesome.
The next thing I read was a graphic novel, and that was The Prince and the Dressmaker by Jen Wang, and it is really, really cute. That's the first thing I'll say. I love the illustration style of this. Ooh. I'm like, no spoilers. This
oh,
like
yeah, I remember this book, yeah.
Yeah, I read this one in one sitting, basically, in a couple hours. It was just adorable. It is the story of a prince who likes dressing as a girl. And so he crosses paths with this dressmaker who is really inventive and really good at, making dresses, and they work together to help the prince shape his other identity, who happens to be a fashionista version of himself.
Oh, totally drags it out. It's awesome.
But yeah, there's a lot of other things that are going on in the story, but the main conflict centers around their friendship, and it's cute. It's like a fairy tale, but a modern day one, which I really, really liked. I think the illustration style was
Any fairy tale that involves
story.
drag is modern.
I think there should be a sequel to this story because that would be amazing. I like what the author did with certain tropes that were in the story, so that was really fun too. So yeah, this I would definitely recommend picking up a copy of. Alas, it does not come out until 2018, so you're gonna have to wait a little bit longer, but it's totally worth it. Definitely add this to your TBR. So enjoyable, so fun.
Don't mind if I do.
Oh, you can.
Awesome. Okay, so to take a break in between all of the actual TBR with like review dates that have to come up because, you know, the arcs are coming out soon, I took a foray back into the Summoner trilogy and got myself from the library a copy of Inquisition and Battle Mage, which I sort of binged right one after the other because why shouldn't you? Especially after the terrible cliffhanger of the first book, so semi-spoilery there. If you have a chance, get all three because it's really just one giant tale. Even if there is a considerable gap between the events of the first book and the events of these next two books. So there is that. Did I like it? Yeah. These are one of the few books that I like that involve elves, dwarves, and humans. Elves and dwarves, just they never like appealed to me the way they've appealed to absolutely every single person. I mean, even the Lord of the Rings couldn't make me love elves and dwarves more. I mean, sure, Legolas and Gimli were fun, but these elves and dwarves, specifically these characters, I totally dig. The cultures were a little more relatable, especially because they're centered around the really fun lore of like summoning demons and stuff like that. And again, they're not really demons, they're just called demons, but really they're like just otherworldly creatures that they're called demons. So they're not like, oh my god, I am Azazel and I will possess your body. Not those kinds of demons. But it's a great trilogy. Lots of action. It killed me at the end. Literally, I was just really tired and I'm like, this is just too heavy, I can't. And I think I may have wept tears. It's possible, but it's just so tired. So that makes and so very well written. I would recommend it. Definitely maybe not rereading it anytime soon, but definitely top tier. So super enjoyed these.
The next book that I read is also something that comes out in 2018. So unfortunately, you're also gonna have to wait. However, I will say it's worth it. Let me introduce you to my newest favorite person. And that's Teen Bruce Wayne, because I read Batman Nightwalker by
Baby
Marie
Bruce. Before he stopped trusting everyone.
Can I just talk about how, like, okay, before I read this book, I enjoy Batman and I enjoy the Bat family, but I specifically have a soft spot for the Robins. Like, they're my favorites. And that's the reason why I loved Batman so much. Aside from Alfred, who gets his own special show.
Oh no,
Alfred's amazing.
Pennyworth is the man.
Right? Anyway. So before this book, I was just like, oh, I'm gonna read it because it's Batman, but also like, I don't really,
because it's Bruce.
And then I start reading it and I'm like, Marie Lou, what are you doing to me?
I know, and Marie Lou actually...
she convinced me that I actually did like Bruce Wayne. And I will very clearly tell you that it's this version of Bruce Wayne that I love because she just wrote him in a way that made him feel more real on an emotional level, on a level I could relate to, and I really like that. This is basically a story set in his teen years, and Bruce he's dealing with a lot of things. He's about to graduate from high school. He is trying to navigate this world now that his trust fund has been open to him.
Oh wow,
he's navigating that world as well. He's also got to deal with some community service he's got to do for some shenanigans he gets into. And this community service leads him into the path of a huge mystery that involves one of the gangs in the city.
Oh hey!
And it's just like this whole thing where I'm just like, it's so Batman. Like the setup is so Batman. She got it so right. But then she managed to like inject it with these characters that I really, really was like, I love them. I love them so much. I love them all. They're so great. But also, I have a request. I would love to see another Batman novel from Marie Lou. I think she should do one where he's like working as an adult so that she can throw Dick Grayson into it. I'm just saying. Anyway, I would highly recommend checking this one out. It is the second book in the DC Icon series. Comes out in January. Definitely go and grab a copy when it does.
Next book. Again, another book that I'd like to chuck my way and said, I think you're gonna like this one. And I thought, okay. She did manage to get to see the author.
Yeah, he's really awesome.
He's really fun. There were some Naruto allusions during the panel, and which convinced her even more that this was a great idea to think. I've actually read it. I get the Naruto allusions, but and even the fight scenes, which he said were the inspiration, but it's definitely a totally different beast from said anime. Anyway, the lore is really rich. I do appreciate that in this particular world, the city of Kos is where our story is held. There are these individuals who are called Aki, and they have the ability to consume the sins of others, which apparently in this world, if you have any kind of sin, it'll manifest itself in the form of a sin beast. So if you did something tiny that was terrible, then something tiny and terrible will come out. If you did something that's really large and terrible, then definitely something large and terrible comes out. And so there's a lot of that battle. So I get the Naruto kind of Jinchuriki illusions, right, where you've got like this tailed beast. Here it's just beasts, and they're terrible and creepy, and they could kill you, which they have, some of the Aki. But when you absorb the sin, it shows up as a new tattoo on your body. So the more tattoos you have on your skin, the better. What's interesting about our main character, Taj, the sins that he's eaten don't fade. Unlike with the others where it sort of just fades in time, with him, it's until, you know, he could die when the sins cover you over. I wasn't too crazy about any of the characters. Like, none of the characters, like, you know, clung to me and made me love them forever. But it doesn't mean they're bad characters either. It's just, you know, it was just a fun ride, basically. But it was good. I do want to read the next book, because it can't end here. I mean, would I be absolutely devastated if a second book didn't come out? No, but I would be upset. I'd be like, oh, rather than, what are you doing? You need to give it to me. So it's not that level, but I do want to know what happens next, so.
Anyway, the next book I read was actually an ebook, and that book is Wildest Dreams by Kristen Ashley.
Right here!
Kristen Ashley. I think it's Kristen Ashley. Anyway, it is the first book in the Fantasyland series, and it is a fantasy romance thing-ish. In the book, the whole concept is that the main character, Shofin, I want to say is how you say her name. I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong. Anyway, she discovers that there is a parallel universe to ours, and she finds a witch who can send her there to trade places with her, I guess, equal in that place. So like the person she is in that world. And she agrees to do this for a year. Only to find out that her doppelganger hasn't really been saying much, because she ends up walking down the aisle and getting married to someone the day she, you know, makes a switch. And this whole story unravels where Finny, I'm just gonna call her Finny because it's so much easier, that's her nickname. Finny gets to explore this new world, which is what she was there for. She loves adventures, and that was one of her things about traveling to this parallel universe. But also, she finds herself caught up in court intrigue, and she also finds herself falling in love with the person she married, who wasn't technically supposed to be married to her, was supposed to be married to the other girl. But yeah, okay, here's the thing. The concept of this book is just crazy. It's like out of this world, and the thing is, it's fun. Like, it's one of those things that you read for pure entertainment, and it's great. I think it was fun to have like an author create this whole fantasy world, which was a little bit tropey, but you know, I mean, like, what fantasy book isn't really? And it was still fun. And like, I enjoyed the court intrigue. I thought like the mentions of other worlds and like history and other characters was so fun. Like, it was really fun. See, I also enjoyed Finny a lot because like her personality is just, she's so adventurous, and she's smart, and she's stubborn, and she's not afraid to express her feelings because she's a modern day girl, okay? And she's gotten thrown into like this fancy medieval world. It is kind of funny as hell to watch her deal with all of this. Like, it's great.
It's kind of most of my friends.
You see, I have two problems with this novel. The first one is time jumps. It happens in a couple of the books that I like, but in this one it was just like abrupt and weird, and like, it was just weird. But that wasn't even the major problem. I could have dealt with that. My problem is I did not like certain things about the love interest. In fact, they were so bad that I didn't like the love interest by the end of the book. Would I continue this series? Probably, because the next few books are about different characters, so I would be interested to see how she handles those.
I, on the other hand, got an ebook as well, and it's one of two ebooks that I'll be reading, written by I want to say Leonora Mariel. The first one is The Woman Behind the Waterfall. So it's a story framed through the eyes of a young girl, and you know, who's got a mom who seems to be going through some terrible emotional stuff, right? seems like a simple enough plot about healing and restoration and how to pick up the pieces of your broken life and start moving on again. But it's wrapped up in so much poetry and allegory, which is not my wheelhouse. It reminds me of movies like Big Fish or What Dreams May Come, right? Where there's that otherworldly, ethereal aspect of it where you frame simple truths like you're stuck in your terrible, deep, dark hole of depression based on things in the past because you just don't see a larger context. Okay, maybe that's not a simple truth, but it is a truth that is important, and it is simple in that you just literally cannot see beyond what is definitely hurting you. Here there's like this, thing where spirit animals come and help, and they're able to explore other threads that, your mom only has this one thread and our families are bound by these threads, and if we snip these threads and whatever, your mom's view can be unbound and she can see the other threads and the way her life could have been, and she'll have a better chance to... I know, it's super, like I said, Big Fish, What Dreams May Come, and all of those other semi-esoteric, like Salvador Dali meets... a Streetcar Named Desire or something like that, I don't know. But, and so did I like it? Yeah, I liked it for what it was. Was it my wheelhouse? Absolutely not. I think I may have to reread it if I really want to understand absolutely everything. But from a storytelling perspective, it's still a simple plot A to plot B. How does this woman pick up her life? And it's well written, and it's good. And I would recommend it if that's your wheelhouse. I think for its genre, it's pretty top shelf. But for plebs like me, who don't really read that kind of stuff, I mean, I like stories about healing, and I appreciate the allegories 800 million%. It's just, it took me a while to have to like piece together. It's almost like an IKEA book. Build your own. It's just, you have to draw it from that perspective and that perspective and put it together, and oh look, a story. And so if you like that, definitely pick that book up. I have nothing but good things to say about it. It's just my experience of it was as such. And so I am looking forward to her other book. I'll talk about that some other time, but that's how that ebook adventure ended.
The next book I read is one that I have wanted to read for a long time, and I finally got around to doing it. And that book is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern.
Oh, hey, yeah.
And this is basically about a traveling fantastical circus where there are two magicians, Celia and Margot, and they are destined to duel. And it is a very slow burn of a book, guys. Like, you think you know where it's going, and it takes a while to get there because it kind of meanders around like the beginnings of the circus and who all these characters are and what it all means. And like, it's slow. And at first I wasn't sure I was going to enjoy it, and I was slightly terrified I wouldn't because I have two friends who love this book, like love. And when I say love, I mean like capital L-O-V-E, love. DJ and Kristen, I'm looking at you. Anyway, but somehow, some way, in the magical way that books like this one do, it got to me. Like, I was so invested in finding out what happened, I didn't even care that we meandered through all of these descriptions and paid, because I was like enjoying the effing circus. Like, I would visit this circus, okay? The Cirque de Rêve, that's what it's called. I would totally visit it. It was so atmospheric, the setting was so great. The plot itself, like I said, very slow burn. The character development, very slow as well. But it's done in such a way where you feel like you're really growing with them. And it's so good. And it ends on such a note that will really hit you in the feels. So, really enjoyed it. I'm glad I finally read it. Also, autumn is the perfect time to read this, to say. So, yeah, really enjoyed it. I'm so glad I finally got to it. Lovely.
Okay, It Devours. Real quick, finished this book this morning. It's a Welcome to Night Vale book. Apparently Night Vale is a city, and there's like a podcast, I guess, that maybe have triggered a bunch of books. Either way, it's a story that centers around a scientist in the city of Night Vale who is trying to investigate these sudden giant sinkholes that have swallowed properties and killed folks along the way, whilst working in a science lab where they're investigating the other world, because apparently in this book, Night Vale is just a city that is also sort of semi a nexus to another world, and there's like aliens, and it's just this really weird trippy science fiction-y thing. And underneath all of that science fiction-y stuff is this kind of indie film, semi in the vein of Rick and Morty meets Futurama, but less irreverent comedy and more just obscure humor and just a tale about, you know, this is what living in this place is like. And I had a fun reading this thing. It involved, well, obviously there's, you know, something that devours, and that's a central theme as well. Not my cup of tea, but now I'm really interested in the podcasts because it's trippy. So wouldn't come back to it, but I do want to know what the podcasts are about now.
The last book I'm talking about is Retribution Rails by Aaron Bowman, and this is the companion novel sequel to... Ignore that. This is the companion novel sequel to Vengeance Road, which is Aaron's debut YA Western. This one is about a girl named Charlotte who wants to be a reporter, and she is chasing a story, and she finds herself on a train, and it just so happens that this is also a train that is being targeted by a gang. And there's a boy in this gang who doesn't want to be in this gang but is forced to be in this gang, named Reese Murphy. And their paths cross, obviously, and there are hijinks, and there's heists, and there may or may not be gunshots, there may or may not be some familiar faces in this one. There's a lot going on, really. Charlotte is trying to solve the problem of her father having died and leaving his, you know, like everything he has to leave to his wife and his daughter, but her uncle wanting to take over it. And Reese, on the other hand, has to deal with trying to escape from the gang, wanting to make a fresh start for himself and all of that. So it's like this really fun individual journey for both of them. There's a lot of like feelings too that I have about their journeys because I cared so deeply for the outcome of each story, but I also like seeing their relationship grow because they started off hating each other and then they eventually admitted to a grudging respect and like cooperation, and then eventually it's a friendship and like, you know, stuff. But yeah, it's so good. Like at first I was like trying to get into the right mindset for it because it's a Western and that's historical fiction too. And it's kind of like very atmospheric, especially, and she also uses a lot of slang. So that's another thing that I had to kind of like get my mindset in. But once I was there, I was totally there. I was like, I'm ready for this. I'm so into it. It just got so good. It came to a point where I was like having so many feelings and I had to stop reading it because I was like, this is just gonna literally be like a speeding train now and I'm just gonna have too many feelings. And I did. I finished it like the morning before work and I was like, oh my gosh, too many feelings. Like I need an epilogue, okay? That is the most important thing about the story. I need an effing epilogue because reasons. But yeah, clearly I really enjoyed this book. I would highly recommend picking it up. You don't necessarily have to have read Vengeance Road to read this one, although it will give you a lot more feelings if you have. So I would recommend picking that one up first, which I really enjoyed as well, and then getting this one and enjoying it as much as I did, I hope. Those are all the books that we read in the month of October so far. We may or may not squeeze one or two more in before the month officially ends, but we figured we'd get this video up already. If you've read any of these, we would love to know. If you're adding any of them to your TBR, we would also love to know. And what have you guys been reading lately and would recommend to us? That we would also
Yeah, we've been taking some recommendations and commenting where you guys comment.
Yeah. Anyway, if you missed any of our other videos, we'll probably link to all of those down below, including the vlog for NYCC, which I really enjoyed doing.
That was fun.
Yeah. Next month, what you have to look forward to is our usual recaps and hauls, but also we are doing part 1 of our Tamara Pierce event, which is very exciting. The official announcement for that one is going up next Tuesday, so you will see it then. We are very excited about it.
Very excited.
Oh, candle shop. I will link you guys to the candle video we made. We're gonna be making another one probably next week, I want to say. Really enjoyed doing that one too, and getting Macky to smell all the candles, which is kind of funny. Yeah. We're doing another one.
And where I sniff everything like a maniac.
We're gonna get a lot more candles.
We're getting a lot more candles.
But anyway, if you are interested in checking out Canterbury Road Co., which is the shop that I'm a rep for, she has amazing candles and amazing scents, and she just released a bunch of new ones, which are awesome. My personal favorite is the Butterbrew cupcake one, which is amazing. You can use my discount code, which is Alexa17. All of that is linked down below. If you want to find us online, we are on Instagram and on Twitter and on Goodreads and the blog. All of that also linked down below. And yeah, that's it for now. We'll see you guys soon. Bye!